Have you ever thought that travel is difficult because of challenges you might be facing? Well, today we are going to help you to understand that no matter what challenges you have, travel is possible. My guest today has taken his son, who lives on the autism spectrum, and has traveled to so many places with him. And he's going to talk today about how you could travel even if you have challenges and talk about some tips of how to do that, as well as share with you some amazing places he and his son and his whole family have experienced. So, Frank, why is it so important for you to share the world with your son?
It's an important way for me to find a connection point with my son, and it's exciting to see him to connect to the world, the outdoors, and all the marvelous places that the world gives us.
You're listening to Inspired Travels with Patty, and you're watching if you're on YouTube. I'm Patty Hunt. I have traveled back and forth across the country 3.5 times as my husband and I were full time in our RV. We've also had the opportunity to do some international travel. And my love of educating people and inspiring people to travel is why I started this podcast. For me, travel isn't just about where you go, but how you live. And my mission has always been to help you live life to the fullest. So let's get into my guest. Frank Kennedy is constantly planning, or at least dreaming about his next trip. His partner in these adventures is his son Calvin, who loves being outdoors more than anything. Together, they have been to 40 U.S. national parks and many more extraordinary scenic places. Calvin is a part-time traveler who lives full-time on the autism spectrum. Calvin loves U.S. history, swimming, and vanilla ice cream. Now, Calvin and I have ice cream in common. If I'm having vanilla ice cream, there's going to be some chocolate on top of it. Frank has been to 75 countries and 6 continents and has become an advocate for those living on the autism spectrum. Frank Kennedy, welcome to Inspired Travels with Patty.
I'm so glad to be here, and it's nice to see your face for those listening. We have a video connection, and I think the last time I saw your face in person was in outside Lake Mead in
Okay,
Las
yeah.
Vegas.
Yes. So Frank and I have known each other, for my listeners, just to give them background. We've known each other for probably 18 years. Frank was an official with Dan. So for those of you who don't know, my husband Dan was a referee, a football official for high school, right? And did you do some college football?
I never did college, but Dan and I
But
had a
high
lot of
school.
field time together.
Yes, yes. And so I hung out with them on the field. A story for another time. You did come out and visit us when we were RVing and we were staying in Lake Mead. So you and your wife, and you actually have two sons, which we'll talk more about. But let's jump in. When did your love of travel begin?
I guess my parents introduced me to travel, and although my parents traveled always to see someone else, never to see a location, we would enjoy the locations we were at, but we always were visiting Aunt Lukey or my father's sisters or grandma in different places. One of those places that we went to often, though, was near the Smoky Mountains, where my father's sister had a beautiful home, and we were able to enjoy the Smokies during the day and the evening, being so close to them in Sevierville, Tennessee. So my 10th birthday was in the Smokies, and there are many pictures of that. And I think I got uh, hooked on travel there, but I never really thought of travel for travel's sake for a long time after that. I was so in my parents' mode that we were always travel to see family, and maybe we'll see interesting things along the way.
That's kind of my travel experience as a kid. As a family, we didn't really travel. We went to see family. For me, it was in Scranton. Three kids would pile in the back of a car, keeping in mind back in the day, no air conditioning. So, of course, it was in the summer. We were shoved in the back of the car, and it took what seemed like 20 hours to get from Philadelphia to Scranton. And I didn't necessarily learn at that time to appreciate the area, what was around. And it sounds like you did have some appreciation. Now, when we traveled when we were kids, we're a little older. There was no Googling things. There was no Facebook where you're shown all these beautiful places. So from there, where did you go? I mean, you visited, let me go back in my notes, 75 countries in six continents. Where did you go from the sort of US local-ish area to really getting out there and travel? How did that transition?
Two things happened. Until I was 16, I had never flown on an airplane, but one family trip involved my older sister, whose husband got transferred out to Albuquerque, New Mexico,
Mhm.
and they drove their family car out there. They had two cars. So we drove their second car out, and I got to see most of the country on that trip. And we ended up flying back, which was very exciting. Albuquerque to O'Hare in Chicago, and then back to Philadelphia. And I had never flown before, and it was very, very exciting and interesting, and seemed very extravagant and la di da. And I sure loved it. After I never flew again until I was in college, and a college professor tapped some students who had studied some languages, in my case, Greek, and said, stay after class. And I was worried I'd have to translate something. And he proposed to a small group of us, I'm going to run a trip to Athens, Greece, and the rest of the country. Would you be interested? And I said yes.
Wow,
As a
how old
semester,
were you? When was
I was about 19 then. So I got my first experience for international travel by going to Greece with a college course that was joint with a college course at Harvard University. We met students there, but we took a van up to JFK. We actually got into kind of a people mover. I don't think they use them anymore, and I thought that was the airplane. It was I
oh,
thought, and I was it was kind of like a boxy thing, and I was like, this is different than airplanes I've seen on TV, but maybe this is how they do it internationally. But it was uh, it was a great experience. We flew to that time we had to fly. It was in the 80s. We had to fly to Shannon, Ireland to refuel, and we didn't leave the airport, but it was daybreak there, and everyone had accents in the small coffee shop we got out and looked at. And I was very excited to become an international traveler. And then I had 3 weeks in Greece, so I got really hooked into travel by seeing first hand the wonders of the world.
and I think for a lot of people, it's that first step, and it might not be grace. For me, I was 16 when I first went on a plane. In high school, there was a teacher that did trips, and we took a trip to Florida. So we went to Orlando and did all of that, which I had never been. So, that's where the bug started. It's good to see that today, fast forward to today, there's so much more information out there and ways to travel. And we are going to get into that. You are from Philadelphia, same as I am from the Philadelphia area. And as we were going back and forth, go birds. Yes,
Go
they're doing
birds.
well so far. So you have a wife and two sons. Let's talk a little bit about when we say being on the autism spectrum. I think there's a lot of misinformation. I was a teacher for 20 years. I haven't taught. I think I took a very early retirement, as I say. I think it was about 8+ years ago. I don't even know the year I retired. I should look at that. But, the information that has come out has changed. So I want to give my listeners a little bit of background on what that means. I think a lot of people are dealing with or have experience with children who are on the spectrum in some way.
I've learned that autism spectrum disorder is a disability that uh, some people have that connects your brain to your to your life uh, atypically different than other people have, and these different types of connections manifest themselves very differently. There are many people in the autism spectrum, many undiagnosed, and there's sometimes that quirky person in your office. So you're wondering why they always do things that way or why they talk to you that way. They may be adults who are diagnosed or undiagnosed on the autism spectrum. It can become very severe because it affects sensory issues. So when you, uh, for instance, we're all taught as I've been taught as a child and through adulthood that when you give a handshake, give great eye contact to someone else. Where someone on the autism spectrum, giving eye contact is so powerful and distracting that it might shut down other parts of their functioning. So
Right.
they will look away. And
Mhm.
it's almost a form of politeness and a desire to connect with you that they're looking away. But it's often interpreted that they're looking away because they're being rude or dismissive of you. But they're in fact they're trying to listen to what you're saying. They're trying to take you in, but they can't take you in and a whole bit. It's kind of like when we look at the sun, we got to look away.
Right.
But for some people, ordinary things become that way.
One of the reasons I want to talk about this, because if you're traveling with someone who is on the spectrum, it can create certain challenges. You're talking about somebody making eye contact. Again, as a teacher, there are some people that don't want to be touched. I'm a very hugging person. Like if I meet you, I know you, there's some, connection there, a sense, then I usually hug somebody. But there are people that it's not that they don't want to, but that feeling of being touched or hugged is not okay. And so one of the reasons I want to bring this up and I want to tell a story. I was in an airport a couple years ago, and there was a woman with a baby and a young child. And the child was having what people would say is a tantrum, and like Frank in our generation, if a kid was out in public having a tantrum, like the parent dragged them out, whatever the consequences, so to speak, were, it wasn't, it was handled maybe differently. The thing that I'm trying to get at is there are people that will sometimes say, oh, they're just not disciplined. And I know, and that's not the case. And I want to make that clear to people. So in this particular situation, the woman had set the baby down. The baby's crawling away. The kid is having a tantrum. She's dealing with a stroller and she's overwhelmed. And I'm looking at her not in any judgment at all, but we all know, if anybody who's a parent knows, if your kid's crying in a restaurant, you think parents are looking, other people are looking and judging. Some are. In this case, I finally just went up and said, could I help? I thought she'd hand me the stroller. I thought she'd put the kid in this. Like, she picked the baby up and literally threw the baby to me, like, here, you handle the baby. So she could handle, the kid that she needed to find a way to handle. And I have a lot of empathy for parents that are going through that, because the kid is not just being disrespectful. They're not just misbehaving. It's not a lack of parenting. And I'm going down this rabbit hole a little bit here because we see it, right? I mean, I'm sure you've seen that kind of situation.
Sure, and we've met uh, cold stares, but we've also gotten the kindness of strangers who have helped us out and at least understood that we have a different situation than them. Speaking of Go Birds, one of the amazing events that the Eagles have is a Huddle Up for Autism event where they invite families with children of autism to come hang out at the stadium and have fun. There's no game going on, but there's
Right, right.
lots of activities. It's like a carnival. And the best thing, the best thing for parents is that every parent there understands that another parent is going through a struggle. And we know two things, which are kind of contradictory. We know exactly what that parent's going through, and we also have no idea exactly what that parent's going through because everybody's situation is different. But it's just great to be in a situation where everyone understands that we have children that don't act typically in all situations.
Right. So now we decide we want to travel with our kids, and I'm sure for some parents that's difficult. I have three kids myself. Um, they each have their own quote unquote difficulty because I don't know that as a parent you ever have a kid that you say everything was perfect. That just doesn't happen.
Sure.
There are certainly levels and extremes of that. My son, which I hope he doesn't mind me sharing, went through a point in time where he was just fearful of everything. And that just happened all of a sudden. So now I'm trying to get him on an airplane or we were at the Bellevue in Philadelphia having a party for my dad on the 19th floor. He decided he's not getting on an elevator. I literally walked up all 19 flights,
Wow.
yeah, in heels. Um, so, and again, the only reason I'm saying this is because as parents, we all have some type of challenge and struggle, and I don't want that to keep parents from deciding to travel. So, what kind of tips, whether a child's on the spectrum, what kind of tips, what has helped you to be able to take Calvin and your older son's name is I forget,
Nathaniel.
Nathaniel. What kind of tips do you have for parents who are looking to travel with their kids?
Well, I recommend that they try it. There's sometimes obstacles, and other families have other difficulties with this because you face unfamiliar things. You face a break in routine. You face foods that, or comfort foods that may not be available, or new foods that seem strange. There are crowds, there's long lines, there's security people, there's all kinds of interesting obstacles to get from point A to point B. So everyone faces those obstacles when they travel, but it becomes difficult. I do have two sons. They're both on the autism spectrum. My sons are 8 years apart, although we call them twins because they look so much alike.
Mhm.
My older son, I say, is not as deep on the spectrum as my younger son, but they both face challenges. The first thing you need to do is explain what's going to happen to your child. Give them some heads up in preparation. Sometimes in education, they're called social stories, but you explain what it's like to get on an airplane, what it's like to go through security, what the rules are on a airplane is different than the rules at home. You can't have your tray table down when you take off. And some of these rules you learn as you go, but you you work to figure it out. You bring some of the comfort items they like. My son likes technology, so an iPad is a great device. You bring preferred activities, coloring books when they're young, and some sampling of their Legos, not all their Legos,
Right, right.
but a few comfort items that they can be distracted by and enjoy uh, the waiting times that exist in travel, whether it's sitting in an airport or in a unexpected traffic jam. You've got some tools.
And for me, food, like even for me, snacks. If I'm on an airplane and all of a sudden now we're sitting out on the tarmac and we're stuck there and a half hour goes by and an hour goes by, I'm thinking food. So I do a lot of travel and a lot of it is on planes and honestly, there are times I'm in first class and you get food, but I always make sure to have a bag of food. And usually it includes chocolate, but I know that's my comfort thing. So, and that could apply to any parent, any kid. Make sure you have the snacks, make sure you have a drink. I'm just going to add that one in there. Okay, so let's talk about a place you discovered that was a surprise to you. And I know I'm putting you on the spot. I didn't give you these questions ahead of time, so I'll give you a second to think about it.
There are many that come to mind. Um, and as you said, in the internet age, you're not as surprised as you used to be because you've done some research. I examine other travelers and their video logs, and in some ways, I'm doing prep for my family and my boys of what to expect when they're out there, or even showing them some pictures of what a desert environment might look at before they've ever seen a desert environment firsthand. But surprise places, I think I had heard a lot of people go on and on about Watkins Glen in nearby New York, Watkins Glen State Park, which is next, it's the bottom of a Finger Lake, and there's a state park there, which is otherworldly. It's like part moonscape and part cavern, and it's in the middle of nearby New York. Our family likes the Finger Lakes region, and we've explored many places up there. So Watkins Glen is certainly a place that really surprised me and our boys. I thought it was going to be another walk through fields and pastures, but it was really quite different.
And I love what you said. And again, for anybody traveling together, it was for those people who don't know, Dan and I traveled in an RV and we did some international travel over the last 20 years. And I think that being able to have conversations together about the places that we are thinking about going, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? When he and I started, and this is for anybody, whether it's kids or a couple of adults going together, but when he and I first talked about going in the RV full time, I laughed, as some people have heard the story. It was during COVID. He called me up to his office and said, "Let's sell everything, buy an RV, and travel the country." And literally laughed because I had only been in an RV for 7 total nights. I had little to no experience. I had never even been to the Pacific Coast. I had some travel that I had done, but so much that I was clueless about. And so one of the things he said was, we'll visit all the national parks. We'll visit every national park in the country. Like, that'll be our thing. And I was like, okay, that sounds interesting. But, and I'll be honest, in a little over 3 years of travel, even to this day, I've been to zero national parks.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And I gotta say, one of the reasons for that is because we would find all of these other cool areas. We would stop at these little towns. We would see something on the side of the road and just stop. And that became more exciting and interesting. But I think the point here that you're making and I'm making is whoever's traveling, whoever you're traveling with, and whatever means of travel, whether you're flying, you're taking a train, a boat, whether you're in an RV, everybody kind of being together and looking at those pictures, looking at what kinds of things does everybody like to do, what's of interest, being open to other things that might come up, but that's a great thing to kind of share that with the whole group.
Yeah, it's just true.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, do you have a lot of my audience was or is or veers, I should say. Do you have experience going into campgrounds? Do you have camping experience with either yourself or with your sons?
I think we're past our camping phase, although it could come back, but we have had experiences where we've camped. We were in Bahia Honda State Park in the Florida Keys. We've camped at Assateague. We've camped at Acadia National Park. Trying to think if we had any camping experiences out west recently. I have had some, but not with my family. But we enjoyed camping and those experiences, and but we never had the full RV life.
Okay, when you say camping though, what kind of camping did you do?
Yeah, we're just doing tent
Tent
camping
camping. Okay, so
out
you
of
did the
the
tent camping thing. And that's what's interesting. One of the things, and I'm going to do a whole episode on it, is I've done some tent camping, very little. That one time where it was an absolute downpour with lightning and it's the middle of the night, you have to go to the bathroom. That's where, like, no more. I'm done with
That
that.
happened. That happened to me this summer a little
I,
bit. We
yeah,
I had a beautiful lightning light show,
it
but
would be beautiful if I felt, I mean, I'm in a tent and now I'm
yeah,
thinking, is it safe? And I have to go to the bathroom. Like, it was not the best, not well planned. For those of you who like to tent, more power to you. Probably have to have somebody on the show that talks all about tent camping. My thing now is now that I don't have the RV anymore, I was just at the Hershey RV show and stayed in a hotel, and all of my friends were in the campground nearby. And I have started to think over the last year and a half, not being in the RV, I like the idea of camping, not tent, and I'm not looking to buy an RV, but doing it in a cabin. I've stayed in a yurt, a retro RV. You could rent RVs. So that's a big thing. Would you consider going into a campground if you didn't have to do the whole tent thing? Because I see a lot of value in being in a campground.
and Calvin and I, when we visited New River Gorge National Park in West Virginia, we stayed at Babcock State Park, and we had a great time in a cabin there. We you know we had lots of deer come by our cabin, and which was nice. We had nice screened in porch. It was a very efficient space, but it was very pleasant and nice. The campground also had a small lake and a paddle boarding, which we took advantage of, and we enjoyed our time, you know, not traveling by resting, but we
Mhm.
still had a great experience at that campground. There are, I think, the state parks and their campgrounds are often of real good value, and they're often sometimes they're unavailable because there's not a secret to many people. But if you can get a good campground spot, I think you're going to have a good time and a real good value.
Right, right. And again, so for my people who are in RVs, national parks are a great place, state parks are a great place to stay. And for those people, so I talked to somebody that was from the Pennsylvania State Park, whatever their official title is. I can't remember off the top of my head. And they said they were at the Hershey RV show. They have a big map of all the state parks in Pennsylvania. I didn't ask how many, but what the guy said was when you're in Pennsylvania, no matter where you are, you're never more than 25 miles from a state park. I
Well,
thought that was really interesting. So anybody listening that's from Pennsylvania has no excuse not to go out and visit a state park, even if it's for the day. And again, this podcast is to encourage people to get out and explore and experience things that, maybe they didn't. So maybe for some people wondering about travel, maybe it is a day trip to a state park. Just, like where do people start if they're just looking
sure.
to get
That's the
somewhere?
way to start. It's a way to start. And then while you're there, you'll see some of the facilities and recreation options that are available. And you may not be prepared that day, but you can go back and, oh, next time we'll try canoeing, or next time we'll, that path, maybe we'll go take that hike next time. But if you just drive into some of these state parks in Pennsylvania, I don't think they're fee based. I think you can visit them. If you have camping or other activities, you'll pay a reasonable fee, but I don't think there's admission fees in the Pennsylvania state parks. So you can get a taste for these parks and go about. I think it's somewhere around 90 state parks, but I'm not sure I've got current figures or
Right.
reliable memory there. But
That's okay.
I've
We'll
did,
fact check it.
yeah. And we camped in World's End State Park in north central Pennsylvania, not too far from Williamsport, and we've been to Ricketts Glen, and I've been to a historic state park in southern Pennsylvania, but only to see a presidential uh, log cabin of James Buchanan, our first Pennsylvania president.
Wow. Okay. And so a lot of the history that you had said Calvin enjoys, and from what the I guess he was a ranger that I spoke to, said a lot of the Pennsylvania campgrounds does have cabin rentals. He said some of them are more primitive, but some of them have, you know, nice place to sleep. You're running water, kitchens, bathrooms. I got a little spoiled. I want the amenities, a bathroom, a shower, kitchen, place for me to make my coffee. This is my idea of camping. So, but I,
Yeah, no, that Babcock State Cabin was very well equipped
Mhm.
with all those things,
Right.
and we enjoyed that. But yeah, there are more. There's often a range of accommodations that you can get, and my wife always dreams of getting one of the big places. Some of them have multi-bedroom facilities where you could maybe do an extended family vacation, but that's
Right.
hard to coordinate sometimes.
It is, but again, doable. So honestly, this week we're recording this, I guess it's the middle of September. I don't even know what day it is, but next week on Monday, I'm going to a place called Circle M. It's a campground right near Lancaster. So it's only about an hour from where both of us are right
Right.
now. And I am staying in a cabin and it actually sleeps six. So it's got the bathroom, shower, kitchen, it's got a deck, it's got a barbecue grill, a fire pit. Everything you can need is provided, except bring your food. I was told bring your food and your clothes. It's got a hot tub there, there's miniature golf. And I just want to use this as an opportunity. It's a Thousand Trails park and it's a membership and they have campgrounds all around the country. And I'm just going to give a plug for it because it's been an amazing membership that I've had. As Dan and I traveled around the country, we were able to stay in some beautiful campgrounds. And other than our membership, we stayed for free. So I'm going up to this cabin. I could stay for the week, absolutely not costing me anything. So I'm going to put the show in the show notes information about that because it's another great way to experience the campground lifestyle. There's biking paths in the summer. There's a river that runs around the campground that you can get on a tube and float around. There's activities, all kinds of things. There's a great big pool. There's an indoor hot tub, all the amenities you can imagine. And to me, that's so much better than just being in a hotel because now I'm going to hang out with friends. We could have, sit around the campfire and roast marshmallows, all those kinds of things. So I'm I'm really excited about the idea of going into campgrounds.
Typical hotel properties with all those amenities will charge you an extra resort fee, but comes
Exactly.
part of the package at a lot of these campgrounds and state parks. They have so many other things to offer that you might miss if you don't go down that path.
Right. And it really is worth checking both sides. So I was in Disney in Florida I call it Disney in Florida, in Orlando with my family last month. And we found a hotel. We were only staying for 3 days, just a quick, because we all have resident passes for Disney. And it was a quick trip. And we found this hotel and it was like, this is reasonable. And then the $30 a night resort fee and there was little to nothing there. There was a pool there. That was it.
Yeah.
And so now I could have stayed in a campground, way more amenities for a lot less money. So I'm starting to think more about that as an option. I know I'm saying this a lot, but I think there's a lot of other options out there. Okay, so international travel. Are you thinking what about international travel? Have you taken your sons international?
Yeah, my son, when he was very young, didn't speak very much. Calvin, he was not mute, but he would speak in one or two word utterances, and it was often hard to figure out what he was thinking and he liked. At Christmas time, we'd ask him for his Christmas list, and he wouldn't provide us anything for a couple Christmases. And then one year he came out with he would like a ball. And so we were able to get our resources together and make his dream come true and got him a ball. But one of the other things we all noticed he was interested in, and he actually wrote this on a class poster while other kids were writing their favorite activities or their strengths were reading or football or dancing. Calvin wrote his strength was calendar skills because he loved studying the calendar and the days and the weeks and the seasons and how that all fit together. In early elementary, that's one thing they begin to teach, but he went in depth and he started looking at calendars from the 1600s and in the future. And if you needed somebody to tell you what day of the week Valentine's would fall on next year, he'd be ready to tell you.
Oh, wow.
But because his birthday, which is also in December, fell near Christmas, uh, and at the end of the year, he started getting gifts of calendars at Christmas time when he got enough balls. So family would give him calendars, and they calendars he got often had pictures of beautiful scenery and landmarks from around the world. So he started getting interested in geography, and I don't think it was his first international trip because we went to the Caribbean, but we flew to England via Northern Ireland to see primarily Stonehenge and Big Ben. He wanted to see those those two things. And when we got to Big Ben, it was covered in scaffolding, and I spied it first as we were walking up there, and I thought he was going to be heartbroken when he saw that. But as soon as I pointed it out to him, there it is, and he saw that clock tower. He was just thrilled and satisfied that he had seen it. The scaffolding didn't bother him at all.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and we also explored Stonehenge, which was in some ways ironic because Stonehenge may have been one of the original calendars of a different type, but
Mhm.
we got to uh, spend a good day, half day in and around Stonehenge uh, and enjoy just seeing that remarkable place. And when you see these places you've seen in pictures all your life and you get to see them for real, it's kind of mystic and
Yeah.
mind-boggling, and
Can't even describe it, right?
you
You
can't believe you're there, and but you know you're there because you're right there walking around Stonehenge. So
That was the feeling I got when I first saw the Caribbean, because we live on you and I live on the East Coast, the New
right.
Jersey shore. The water is dirty looking at best. So when I went down and saw the Caribbean, I couldn't even speak. That was just amazing. And then when I went and saw the Eiffel Tower, I was 22 and traveled there by myself. I went to go see my sister-in-law, and at night, standing at the Eiffel Tower, yeah, was just you just can't describe it. Can't describe it. And these are things that I'm hoping, again, they're the big things, they're the bucket list items, really trying to get people take that small trip, build up, see what it is that you're interested in is my goal. Okay, so tell me, do you have plans? What are your trips that are coming up? Do you have any plans for anything? Is there an ultimate that you, Calvin, you guys want to do? Is there that ultimate big, for me, I guess it'd be, as I'm letting you think, because I'm putting you on the spot. I think the
No, no,
for me,
I, I've got a melody of trips planned or semi-planned in my head, but nothing. I haven't bought anything yet. So, but Calvin and I are still in the hunt for national parks. In August, Calvin and I visited Glacier Bay National Park. Not There's a Glacier National Park in Montana, but Glacier Bay is in Alaska. And Calvin got to visit his 49th state. So
wow.
obviously, we're planning, at least in concept, to get to the 50th state sometime soon, which is Hawaii
Okay, I was just saying
for
you have
Calvin.
people do it in different orders. That is
Yeah,
one that I want to go to. So maybe you'll invite me to come with. We could do some
yeah,
video
sure. A
along the way.
podcast.
Yeah, there you go. Some video and podcasts. And it is one of the states that I haven't been to. I've always talked about going to Hawaii. Um, yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. Okay, so Hawaii's
I,
on.
I visited Hawaii and it is worth going. It's my second lap around the state, so
Uh,
I'll get to, if I get to Hawaii with Calvin. And Hawaii has two national parks, which are on our goal list.
that's awesome.
We so we're certainly thinking about that. Um, I tend to want to plan to go to new places, although there are many beautiful places I never mind going back to, but I always enjoy seeing something new. And I would, I certainly would like it. Our trip to Alaska was very fulfilling. Calvin was very excited to, I think he was excited to see Juneau because he studied state capitals. And so he got to see Juneau on our trip as well.
I think that it's like Disney. That was the first place I ever went when I was 16, the first place I ever really traveled to. And I had been there more times than I could even count. And then I think seeing it through my kids' eyes, because I took my kids, and now enjoying it through my grandkids' eyes. So while I want to see new places because they're endless, places locally in my own neighborhood, right here in Pennsylvania, um, across the country, around the world, there are so many places to see. Seeing them with someone else and through someone else's eyes, I just brings a different, you see it in a whole different way. I want to go back to the Eiffel Tower and just enjoy that with people, family, friends, whoever that is, because I think I'd see it from a whole different perspective. So,
I think that's true. I was on a site of other national park collectors like myself, and they asked the question, what are the I think it might have been top four or five parks you'd recommend people go to, and people had great recommendations, and some of them were very expected, like the Grand Canyon or uh, Glacier Park or Yellowstone, and those are fabulous places. But I took a little different tack, and I answered the question: uh, go go to one you've never been to. Go to one in a climate that's very different than yours. So if you're from Florida, go to the mountains somewhere. If you're from the desert area, come east and see uh, the Smokies or Shenandoah National Park. If you're so see a park that you haven't seen before, see one that's in a totally different climate. And I think another answer I gave was uh, go to a park that you've been to before and see it with your family who's never been there before, and have them get the experience of enjoying a park that you've come to love, or an area of the world that you're very comfortable in.
thank you. And I was going to ask, you answered the question before I asked it, but the question was, what are some additional tips? And that is some amazing tips. And this has been an incredible interview. So much I've learned from you today. How can people connect with you? There's so much. You're an advocate. Let me just recap. You're an advocate for autism. You are a writer, a storyteller, so many things that you do. And I didn't mention, but sleight of hand magic, right? You do that as well. So many things people can reach out to you about. You have traveled, you certainly have more travel experience than the next 10 or 20 people I know. So, is there a way people can reach you, social media? Again, putting you on the spot a little bit.
No problem. On social media, I'm listed as Frank R. Kennedy III, and I'm often wasting my time on Facebook, so I'm sure I'll be happy to find new people to interact with. On Instagram, I'm at Everything is Awesome, although awesome is spelled AUSOME. And I'm pretty old school. You can contact me at my email, fkennedy3 at gmail.com. I'll be happy to engage with you and One of the things I want to talk to you about and learn from you is how to build a social media presence like you have, and some of the things that you've learned.
Yes,
Um,
and we're going to do that because as I talked about, first of all, for anybody that's listening that might be in the car, wherever you are, all of those, I will lead people to all of your social media and email so they can reach out to you. We love
Thank you.
getting questions. We encourage people reach out. Yes, and to your point, as we spoke, and again, we've known each other for many years, and I'm learning more and more about you. Sharing your story. It's all about sharing stories. I've been thinking of this interview since we spoke a couple weeks ago. You are such an inspiration. I believe you have so much more to offer people. And I mean that sincerely. So whether somebody's on the spectrum, diagnosed on the spectrum, or just like you said, I know people that walk into a room, a crowded room, they could talk to people for a while and then they have to leave. They have to walk outside. They're not being rude. Maybe they're on the spectrum, maybe they're diagnosed, maybe they're not. It doesn't matter. But I think when we ourselves realize what we need and how we can handle that and educating people so we can help our kids. We can be more compassionate to people around us that, are walking away or turning their head or not making eye contact. I think it makes just for a better world because I think most people are good people and they really are trying and they really are trying to be helpful and supportive. Again, you look at the people on Facebook that are making the negative comments, and that's what we focus on. But I believe there are more people that are good people and helpful. And that woman in the airport that was just at her wit's end, some people would say, hey, learn how to discipline your kids. Maybe you shouldn't travel. Maybe you shouldn't travel by yourself. No, she was doing something that so many people won't, and she was figuring out how to manage it. And I wouldn't want people to not travel because they're worried about some challenge, whether that's a medical challenge, somebody's on the spectrum, whatever that is, don't let that stop you. Life, as I always say, is too short. So I am going to help you figure out how to get yourself out there because your information, your knowledge, your story is incredibly important.
well, I'm so glad I'm here, and I'm happy with your rebranding and of your podcast. I've been following and listening for a long time, and it's always great to be with you. But it's always great to be with you, and you don't even know it. And
No, right. And on that note, there are people out there that have been listening, whether it was the previous podcast or this new one, and I'm going to encourage people to reach out to me. Certainly, if this resonates, it does help me if you hit the follow button. If you feel like other people could benefit from this information, certainly share it with them. Reach out to me on social media. All of my information, social media, everything is at Inspired Travels with Patty. So, Frank, I want to thank you so very much for all of the valuable information you provided.
well, I appreciate the kind words, and I look forward to hearing more of your broadcasts, especially when I'm going to be on.
There you go. And this episode will come out in a couple weeks. People can listen to the previous episode about hidden gems, which you also shared some of them. I also have somebody that's coming on that was on a sailboat, her and her husband, for 6 months, a 42-foot sailboat for 6 months with another couple. Wow, that's got to be interesting. So that'll be coming out soon as
Yeah.
well. I also talked to somebody who's going to talk about all things Nashville, the things we don't expect. So for those listeners, thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned for lots of great content. Well, I hope it's great. If it's not, let me know. Send me a private message, what you want to hear about. But I want to leave you with this one last message. Travel is not just about where you go, it's about how you live. And I want to encourage you to live life to the fullest every day.